The rain fell in sheets across the empty highway as Mike Reynolds pulled his rusted pickup truck to the side of the road. Another long shift at the garage had left grease embedded under his fingernails that no amount of scrubbing could remove. His phone buzzed, a text from the babysitter saying his daughter's fever had spiked again. Medical bills he couldn't afford flashed through his mind. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. That's when he spotted it, a cherry-red Mustang, hood up, hazard lights blinking weakly in the downpour. A woman in an expensive business suit stood helplessly beside it, drenched and waving frantically. Mike had every reason to drive past. He was already late, his daughter was sick, and he had exactly $43 to last until payday. But something made him stop. That single decision would alter the course of his life forever, though he had no way of knowing the woman with the broken down. Mustang was Eleanor Hayes, CEO of Hayes Automotive Group, one of the largest car dealership chains in the country. And she was about to make him an offer that would change everything. The windshield wipers of Mike's 2009 Ford F-150 fought a losing battle against the November downpour. His truck had seen better days. 172,000 miles on the odometer, a passenger, door that wouldn't open from the outside, and an air conditioner that had given up the ghost 3 summers ago. But it was reliable mostly, and that's all that mattered when it was the only thing keeping him employed. Mike squinted through the rain-blurred glass at the stranded Mustang. It wasn't just any Mustang. It was a GT500, probably worth more than he made in 2 years. The woman pacing beside it kept checking her watch, her designer suit already soaked through. "Damn it," Mike muttered, pulling over. He didn't have time for this. Lily's babysitter, Mrs. Watkins from down the hall, had already extended her hours twice this week. He'd promised to be home by 8, and it was already pushing 7:30. The text message from 20 minutes ago still burned in his mind. "Lily's fever is 102.3 now. Should I give her more medicine?" He'd called the pediatrician's after hours line, but they'd told him to bring her in if it got any higher, another co-pay he couldn't afford. The stack of medical bills in his kitchen drawer had grown thick enough to prop open his apartment door. Mike switched on his hazards and stepped out into the rain, pulling his worn baseball cap lower over his eyes. The cold water immediately seeped through his work shirt, already stained with the day's labor. "Need some help?" he called out, approaching the woman. She turned, relief washing over her face. "Oh, thank God. My phone died, and I haven't seen another car in 20 minutes. Her voice carried the confidence of someone used to being in charge, despite her current predicament. "What seems to be the problem?" Mike asked, already moving toward the open hood. "It just died while I was driving. All the lights came on. Then nothing." She gestured helplessly at the engine compartment. "I know it's a car, and it has an engine, but beyond that—" She shrugged. Mike nodded and leaned under the hood, his experienced eyes scanning the sophisticated engine. "I'm Mike. By the way, Eleanor Hayes," she replied, extending a manicured hand, then seeming to realize how formal the gesture was in the pouring rain. She laughed, a genuine sound that seemed at odds with her polished appearance. Mike wiped his hand on his jeans before shaking hers. "Let me take a look." He worked methodically, checking connections and components. The rain beat a steady rhythm on the hood above him as he traced wires and examined the battery terminals. Eleanor stood nearby, watching with interest rather than impatience, which surprised him. "Your alternator's shot," he finally announced. "The belt's completely shredded. Not something we can fix here." Eleanor sighed, pushing her wet hair from her face. "Perfect. I'm supposed to be at a meeting in Portland in an hour." "Portland? That's at least 3 hours from here," Mike said, checking his watch. "Exactly." She glanced at her dead phone. "And now I can't even call to reschedule." Mike hesitated, then pulled out his own phone, an ancient model with a cracked screen. He offered it to her. "Here, you can use mine." Eleanor looked at him with genuine gratitude. "Thank you. I don't want to impose, but it's fine," Mike said, more gruffly than he intended. He was already calculating how late this would make him, and what excuse he could offer Mrs. Watkins this time. As Eleanor made her calls, Mike secured the Mustang's hood and considered his options. The right thing would be to offer her a ride to the nearest town with a decent garage, but that would put him at least 2 hours behind. Lily needed him. Her asthma complicated every cold, turning simple sniffles into frightening episodes where her small chest heaved with the effort to breathe. "Done," Eleanor said, handing back his phone. "They're sending a tow truck, but it'll be at least an hour." She looked at the darkening sky with resignation. "I appreciate your help, Mike. You've saved me from a very uncomfortable night." Mike nodded, about to excuse himself, when his phone buzzed again. "Mrs. Watkins. Lily asking for you. Fever at 103.1 now." His stomach dropped. "Look, I hate to leave you here, but my daughter's sick and I need to get home." The words tumbled out as he showed her the message. Eleanor's professional demeanor instantly softened. "You have a daughter? How old?" "She's 6, Mike answered, already backing toward his truck. "There's a gas station about 5 miles up the road. I can call them, ask them to send someone out for you." Eleanor shook her head. No. You need to go to your daughter." She glanced at his truck, then back at her Mustang. "Would it be too much to ask for a ride to that gas station?" Mike hesitated for only a moment. "Get in," he said, heading for his truck. Eleanor grabbed a sleek leather briefcase from her car and jogged over to the passenger side of his F-150. Mike reached across to open the door from the inside. "Sorry, the handle's broken," he explained. "No problem at all," she said, climbing in and setting her briefcase on her lap. She looked surprisingly comfortable in the worn interior, not at all like someone accustomed to leather seats and climate control. As Mike pulled back onto the highway, he was acutely aware of the fast food wrappers on the floor and the duct-tape tear in the seat beside her. He switched on the heater, which rattled alarmingly before pushing out lukewarm air. "So what do you do, Mike?" Eleanor asked, breaking the awkward silence. "I'm a mechanic at Wilson's Auto in Cedar Creek," he replied, eyes fixed on the road. "Been there about 8 years now? You know your way around engines, then. That was impressive back there, how quickly you diagnosed the problem." Mike shrugged. "Just experience. You do something long enough, you get a feel for it." "And your daughter? It's just the two of you?" Eleanor asked, her tone gentle. Mike tensed slightly. He wasn't used to talking about his personal life. "Yeah. Her mom left when Lily was 2. Decided parenthood wasn't for her." The bitterness in his voice was unmistakable, despite his attempt to sound matter-of-fact. "I'm sorry," Eleanor said simply. "It is what it is," Mike replied. "Lily's worth it." They drove in silence for a few minutes, wipers slapping against the windshield. Mike felt Eleanor studying him, but kept his eyes on the road. "What about you?" he finally asked. "Not many people drive Shelby Mustangs around these parts." Eleanor smiled. "I was heading to a meeting. I prefer driving to flying. Gives me time to think." She hesitated. "I run Hayes Automotive Group. We own dealerships across the Northwest." Mike's eyebrows rose. He'd heard of Hayes. They were one of the biggest names in the region. "That explains the car," Eleanor laughed. "It's actually one of our show models. I was taking it to our Portland location." She sighed. "So much for making an entrance." The gas station appeared ahead, its fluorescent lights cutting through the rain. Mike pulled up to the front and put the truck in park. "Thank you for the ride," Eleanor said, gathering her briefcase. She pulled out a business card and handed it to him. "If you're ever looking for a change, give me a call. Someone with your diagnostic skills is worth their weight in gold in this business." Mike took the card automatically, glancing at the embossed Lettering, Eleanor Hayes, CEO. A direct number was handwritten on the back. "Thanks," he said, knowing he would never use it. His life was in Cedar Creek, however precarious it might be. Eleanor reached for the door, then paused. "What hospital is your daughter at?" "She's at home with a sitter," Mike explained. "But if her fever doesn't break, I'll need to take her to Mercy General." Eleanor nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I hope she feels better soon." With that, she pushed open the door and disappeared into the gas station. Mike sat for a moment, staring at the business card before tucking it into his wallet. Then he pulled back onto the highway, pushing his truck as fast as he dared through the rain. When he finally reached his apartment building, it was past 9. He took the stairs, 2 at a time, to the 3rd floor, fumbling with his keys at the door. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Mrs. Watkins met him in the hallway, her kind face creased with concern. "Her fever is still high, Mike. She's been asking for you." "Thanks for staying late," Mike said, peeling off several bills from his thin wallet. It was grocery money, but he couldn't keep taking advantage of the older woman's kindness. Mrs. Watkins waved away the money. "Just get her better. I left some soup in the fridge." Mike nodded gratefully and headed to Lily's small bedroom. She lay curled under her favorite butterfly blanket, her dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. Her cheeks were flushed with fever. "Daddy?" she murmured as he sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm here, Pumpkin," he said, brushing her hair back. "How are you feeling?" "My throat hurts," she whispered, "and my chest feels tight." Mike's worry deepened. The tightness in her chest meant her asthma was flaring up. He reached for her inhaler on the nightstand and helped her take 2 puffs. "Better?" She nodded weakly. "Where were you?" "I had to help someone whose car broke down," he explained, checking her temperature with the back of his hand. She was burning up. "I think we need to go see Dr. Brennan." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "But you said we had to be careful with money." Mike's heart cracked a little more. No 6-year-old should have to worry about medical bills. "Don't you worry about that," he said firmly. "Let's get you dressed." An hour later, they sat in the emergency room at Mercy General. Lily dozed against his shoulder, her breathing labored. The waiting room was crowded with other late-night emergencies, and Mike knew they were in for a long wait. A nurse called Lily's name around midnight. Dr. Brennan, the pediatrician who had been seeing Lily since she was born, had been called in. She confirmed what Mike feared. Lily's cold had triggered a serious asthma flare-up, complicated by the beginnings of pneumonia. "She needs to stay overnight for observation," Dr. Brennan said, her kind eyes understanding the panic this news would cause, both medically and financially. "We need to get that fever down and start her on IV antibiotics." Mike nodded numbly. "Whatever she needs." As the nurses settled Lily into a pediatric bed, Dr. Brennan pulled Mike aside. "How are you holding up?" she asked quietly. Mike ran a hand through his hair. "I'll manage," he said, though they both knew what another hospital stay would mean. His insurance covered only 70% after the deductible, which he'd already depleted earlier in the year with Lily's last respiratory infection. "We'll get her through this," Dr. Brennan assured him, squeezing his arm before moving on to her next patient. Mike settled into the uncomfortable chair beside Lily's bed, watching the rise and fall of her chest as she slept. The IV dripped steadily, delivering medicine that would hopefully bring down her fever and fight the infection in her lungs. He couldn't lose her. After Julia left, Lily had become his entire world. Every extra shift, every sacrifice was for the little girl who had her mother's eyes and his stubborn determination. His phone buzzed with a text. It was from his boss, responding to the message Mike had sent about needing to miss work tomorrow. Third time this month, Reynolds. We need to talk when you're back. Mike closed his eyes, leaning back in the chair. He couldn't lose this job. The garage didn't pay great, but Wilson had been understanding about Mike's situation as a single dad until recently. Business had been slow, and Wilson had been making noises about needing more reliable workers. As the night wore on, Mike dozed, fitfully in the chair, waking at every change in Lily's breathing or when nurses came to check her vitals. By morning, her fever had dropped slightly, but she was still pale and listless. "You should get some coffee," the day nurse suggested when she came to check Lily's IV. "She'll be sleeping for a while with the medication we've given her." Mike nodded, stretching his stiff muscles. "I'll be right back," he promised the sleeping Lily, kissing her forehead. The hospital cafeteria was busy with the morning shift of doctors and visitors. Mike stood in line, counting the change in his pocket and wondering if he could afford both coffee and a muffin. He was so absorbed in this calculation that he didn't notice the woman approaching until she spoke. "Mike!" He looked up, startled, to see Eleanor Hayes standing before him. Gone was the rain-soaked business suit, replaced by crisp slacks and a cashmere sweater. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she looked every inch the CEO her business card proclaimed her to be. "Ms. Hayes," he said, confused. "What are you doing here?" "Eleanor, please," she corrected with a smile. "I came to check on your daughter. I hope you don't mind. I asked at reception for Mike, the father of a little girl admitted last night. They pointed me to pediatrics." Mike was too surprised to be upset at this breach of privacy. "But why?" Eleanor's smile faded into something more serious. "Because you helped me when you didn't have to, when you had every reason not to." "How is she?" Mike ran a hand over his face. "She has pneumonia and an asthma flare-up. They're keeping her for observation, maybe another day or two." Eleanor nodded sympathetically. "And how are you holding up?" The simple question, asked with genuine concern, nearly undid him. When was the last time anyone had asked how he was doing? "I'm fine," he said automatically. Eleanor's raised eyebrow told him she didn't believe him for a second. "Have you eaten anything? Or slept?" Mike shrugged. "I was just about to grab some coffee." "Come on," she said, taking his elbow gently. "My treat. You look like you could use a real breakfast." Too tired to argue, Mike allowed himself to be led to a table. Eleanor returned minutes later with a tray laden with eggs, bacon, toast, fruit, and the largest coffee they offered. "Eat," she commanded, pushing the tray toward him. "I'll get something for myself." As Mike ate his first real meal in what felt like days, Eleanor returned with her own coffee and a muffin. She sat across from him, studying him with those perceptive eyes. "So," she said after he'd demolished half the plate, "tell me about your daughter." Something about Eleanor's direct manner broke through Mike's usual reticence. He found himself talking about Lily, her love of butterflies and space, how she could already read at a second-grade level, her determination to learn how to ride. A bike without training wheels, despite falling countless times. "She sounds remarkable," Eleanor said when he finally paused. "Just like her father." Mike looked down at his plate, uncomfortable with the compliment. "I'm just doing what any parent would do." "No," Eleanor said firmly. "Not everyone would do what you're doing. Raising a child alone, working a physically demanding job, putting her needs before your own, that takes exceptional strength." Before Mike could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Wilson. "Need to talk today. Come by the shop after you're done at the hospital." Mike's stomach clenched. That didn't sound good at all. "Bad news?" Eleanor asked, noting his expression. "My boss," Mike said, pocketing the phone, "wants to talk today. About missing work for your daughter." Mike nodded. "Third time this month, can't really blame him. He needs reliable workers." Eleanor was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "What would you do, Mike, if you could do anything? Career-wise, I mean." The question caught him off guard. I don't know. Never really had the luxury of thinking about it. Humor me, she pressed. Mike stared into his coffee. I always wanted my own shop, he admitted. Nothing fancy, just a place where I could do things right, not rush. Jobs to meet quotas. Maybe specialize in restoring classics. He shook his head. Pipe dream. Why? Starting a business takes capital. I've got debt, not savings. He gestured vaguely at their surroundings. This visit alone will set me back months, if not years. Eleanor nodded, her expression unreadable. We should get back to Lily. She might be waking up. They walked together back to the pediatric ward. Lily was indeed awake, looking small and fragile against the white hospital sheets, but her eyes brightened when she saw Mike. "Hey, Pumpkin," he said, taking his place beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "A little better," she said, her voice hoarse. Her curious gaze shifted to Eleanor, who stood just inside the doorway. "Lily, this is Ms. Hayes," Mike introduced. "I helped her with her car last night when it broke down." Eleanor stepped forward with a warm smile. "It's very nice to meet you, Lily. Your dad has told me what a brave girl you are." Lily studied Eleanor with the frank curiosity of childhood. "You have pretty hair," she finally said. Eleanor laughed, touching her blonde waves. "Thank you. I like your butterfly blanket." Lily smiled, pulling the worn blanket closer. "It's my favorite. Daddy got it for me when I was little." The three of them chatted for a while, Eleanor drawing Lily out with questions about school and her friends. Mike watched in amazement as his normally shy daughter blossomed under Eleanor's genuine interest. For the first time since they'd arrived at the hospital, Lily was animated, her illness momentarily forgotten. When Lily's lunch arrived, Eleanor stood to leave. "I should let you rest," she told Lily. "It was wonderful meeting you." "Will you come back?" Lily asked hopefully. Eleanor glanced at Mike before answering. "If it's all right with your dad." "Yeah, sure," Mike said, though he couldn't imagine why the CEO of a major automotive group would want to visit them again. Eleanor turned to Mike. "Can I speak with you outside for a moment?" In the hallway, Eleanor's businesslike demeanor returned. "Mike, I have a proposition for you." Eleanor guided Mike toward a quiet alcove near the window at the end of the hallway. The morning sun streamed through, creating a stark contrast to the sterile hospital environment. "I've been thinking about our conversation," Eleanor began, her posture straight and confident. "You mentioned your boss texting about wanting to talk today." Mike nodded, anxiety creeping back into his expression. "Yeah, doesn't sound promising." "What if I told you I might have a better opportunity?" Eleanor's eyes met his directly. "The manager at our Cedar Creek dealership gave notice last week. The service department has been underperforming for months." Mike looked at her skeptically. And I need someone who actually knows cars, not just someone who can manage a spreadsheet." Eleanor leaned against the windowsill. "The position comes with a significant salary increase over what you're making now, full benefits, and most importantly, flexible hours." Mike's heart skipped a beat at the mention of benefits. Proper health insurance for Lily would be life-changing, but he shook his head. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not a manager. I'm a mechanic." "You're selling yourself short," Eleanor replied. "I saw how you handled that Shelby last night. Diagnosed the problem in minutes, in the rain, with minimal light. And from what you've told me about raising Lily on your own, you clearly know how to handle responsibilities and challenges." "It's not the same thing," Mike insisted. "No, it's not," Eleanor agreed. "But skills can be taught. Character can't." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, different from the one she'd given him the night before. "This is the address of our Cedar Creek location. Come by tomorrow at 2. I'll be there to show you around." Mike took the card automatically but didn't pocket it. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Eleanor's professional facade softened slightly. "Let's just say I recognize potential when I see it." and I believe in second chances. She glanced at her watch. I need to head to Portland for that meeting I missed last night. Think about it, Mike. This could be good for both of us. Before he could respond, she was walking toward the elevator, her confident stride drawing glances from hospital staff. Mike looked down at the card in his hand, stunned by the unexpected turn of events. When he returned to Lily's room, she was picking at her hospital lunch tray. "Who was that lady?" Lily asked, pushing the green jello around with her spoon. Mike sat on the edge of her bed. "Just someone I helped last night. She was nice," Lily said. "She asked me lots of questions about school and didn't talk to me like I'm a baby." Mike smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind his daughter's ear. "How are you feeling, Pumpkin?" "Better," Lily said, though the dark circles under her eyes told a different story. "Can we go home soon?" "The doctor wants to keep you here another night," Mike explained gently. "Just to make sure those medicines are working?" Lily's face fell. "But who's going to take care of Mr. Whiskers?" Mr. Whiskers was the stuffed cat Lily insisted needed as much care and attention as a real pet. Mrs. Watkins said she'd check on him, Mike assured her. "Now eat a little more of that lunch, okay? You need your strength." As Lily reluctantly took a bite of her sandwich, Mike's phone buzzed again. Wilson's auto shop was calling. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the hallway to answer. "Reynolds, I need you at the shop by 3. Wilson barked without preamble. "We need to discuss your future here." "My daughter's in the hospital, Gary," Mike explained, trying to keep the frustration out of his voice. "She has pneumonia." "I'm sorry to hear that," Wilson said, his tone softening slightly. "But this is business, Mike. I've got a shop to run, customers waiting. Jenkins can't handle the workload alone." Mike closed his eyes, leaning against the wall. "I understand, but I can't leave her right now." The silence on the other end stretched, uncomfortably. "Then maybe this isn't going to work out," Wilson finally said. "I need reliable people, Mike. You're a good mechanic, but I can't keep a spot open for someone who's not there half the time." "Are you firing me?" Mike asked, his voice steady despite the panic rising in his chest. "Let's call it a mutual parting of ways," Wilson replied. "I'll have your final check ready on Friday." The line went dead before Mike could respond. He stood in the hallway, phone still pressed to his ear, as the reality of his situation sank in. No job, no income, no health insurance. And now, massive. Hospital bills are looming. A nurse approached, breaking him from his thoughts. "Mr. Reynolds, Dr. Brennan wants to discuss Lily's treatment plan." Mike nodded, pocketing his phone and the business card Eleanor had given him. He'd deal with his employment situation later. Right now, Lily needs him. Dr. Brennan was optimistic about Lily's progress. Her fever had dropped, and her oxygen levels were improving. If she continued to respond well to treatment, she could go home the following afternoon. "She'll need to continue the antibiotics for 10 days, Dr. Brennan explained, writing a prescription. "And she should stay home from school until her cough improves, probably another week after discharge." Mike nodded, mentally calculating how he would manage. With no job, at least he could be home with Lily. But without income, he pushed the thought away. One problem at a time. "I'll write a note for her school," Dr. Brennan continued, her kind eyes studying Mike's face. "Are you all right? You look like you've had some bad news." "I'm fine," Mike said automatically. "Just tired." Dr. Brennan wasn't convinced, but she didn't press. "Try to get some rest. Lily's stable. There's a recliner in her room that's not too uncomfortable." Mike thanked her and returned to Lily's room. She had fallen asleep again, the half-eaten lunch tray pushed aside. He settled into the recliner, which creaked under his weight. Despite his racing thoughts, exhaustion soon pulled him into a restless sleep. He dreamed of endless mechanics, bills, of Lily coughing until she couldn't breathe, of Eleanor Hayes standing in a garage filled with gleaming cars, holding out a set of keys that turned to dust when he reached for them. When he woke hours later, the room was dimming with the approaching evening. Lily was awake, watching him with those solemn eyes that seemed too old for her young face. "Did you lose your job, Daddy?" she asked quietly. Mike sat up, rubbing his face. "How did you know about that?" "I heard you talking on the phone," Lily admitted. "You sounded sad." Mike moved to sit on the edge of her bed. "I'm not sad, Pumpkin, just figuring things out." He attempted a reassuring smile. "And you don't need to worry about grown-up stuff, okay?" "But who's going to fix the cars now?" Lily asked, her brow furrowed with genuine concern. "Mr. Wilson." "We'll find someone else," Mike said. "And I'll find another job, a better one." As he said the words, Eleanor's business card seemed to burn in his pocket. He'd been so quick to dismiss her offer, but now, what choice did he have? The evening passed slowly. Nurses came and went, checking Lily's vitals and bringing her dinner. Mike stepped out briefly to grab a sandwich from the cafeteria, checking his bank account balance on his phone as he ate. The numbers were even more depressing than he expected. When he returned to Lily's room, he found her drawing with crayons and paper a kind nurse had brought. She'd created a colorful scene of butterflies hovering over what appeared to be cars. "That's beautiful," Mike said, examining her artwork. "What's the story here?" "It's Ms. Hayes' car shop," Lily explained, "but with butterflies because cars are boring without them." Mike smiled. "I think you might be onto something there." Lily continued coloring, adding more details to her imaginative scene. "Daddy, if you don't have to go to Mr. Wilson's shop anymore, can we do more stuff together?" The innocent question twisted in Mike's heart. "Maybe for a little while," he said carefully. "But I'll need to find a new job soon." "What about Ms. Hayes's shop?" Lily asked, not looking up from her drawing. "She likes you, I can tell." Mike shook his head, amazed at his daughter's perception. "It's complicated, Pumpkin. Grown-ups always say that," Lily sighed dramatically. As night fell, Mike helped Lily settle in for sleep. The medication made her drowsy, and she dozed off with her butterfly blanket clutched tightly in her small hands. Mike watched her breathing, easier now than the night before, and felt a wave of determination wash over him. He'd always done whatever it took to provide for Lily. If that meant swallowing his pride and accepting Eleanor Hayes's offer, an offer that still bewildered him, then so be it. He pulled out her business card and his phone, hesitating only briefly before typing a message. "Ms. Hayes, this is Mike Reynolds. If your offer is still open, I'd like to discuss it. Lily should be discharged tomorrow afternoon." He hit send before. He could second-guess himself. Less than a minute later, his phone chimed with a response. "Glad to hear Lily's improving. The offer stands. Meet me at the dealership at 4 p.m. tomorrow. We can discuss details then." Mike stared at the message, a mixture of relief and apprehension washing over him. Whatever awaited him at Hayes Automotive, it had to be better than unemployment. The following day brought blue skies and good news. Lily's fever had broken completely, and her lungs sounded clearer. Dr. Brennan signed the discharge papers shortly after lunch, going over the home care instructions with Mike. "Remember, if her breathing gets labored again, or if the fever returns, bring her back immediately," she said, handing him the prescription for antibiotics. "And follow up with her regular doctor next week." "Thank you," Mike said sincerely. "For everything," Dr. Brennan smiled. "You're welcome, and Mike, take care of yourself too. Lily needs you healthy." By 2 o'clock, they were in a taxi heading home. Mike's truck was still parked at the hospital, but he'd need to pick it up later. Right now, getting Lily settled at home was the priority. He'd have just enough time to make sure she was comfortable before heading to his meeting with Eleanor. Their apartment felt smaller after the spacious hospital room. The stack of mail on the counter, mostly bills, reminded Mike of his precarious financial situation. He pushed those thoughts aside and focused on getting Lily situated on the living room couch, surrounded by her favorite books and toys. "Mrs. Watkins said she'd come sit with you while I go to my meeting," Mike explained, as he heated up the soup she'd left in their refrigerator. "Is it with Miss Hayes?" Lily asked, already engrossed in her book. "Yes," Mike admitted. "She might have a job for me." Lily looked up, her eyes brightening. "At the car place with the butterflies?" Mike laughed. "Well, I don't know about the butterflies, but yes, at her car dealership." "You should take it," Lily said decisively, returning to her book. "She's nice, not fake nice like Mom's new boyfriend." Mike paused, surprised. Julia rarely allowed Lily to meet the men she dated. "When did you meet your mom's boyfriend?" "When she picked me up last month," Lily said, turning a page. "He waited in the car, but she made me say hello through the window." Mike absorbed this information silently. It had been 6 months since Julia had exercised her minimal visitation rights, one weekend every other month. The last visit had been cut short when Julia had received a better offer from friends with a beach house. "What did you think of him?" Mike asked carefully. Lily shrugged without looking up. "He didn't even look at me, just said, 'Hey, kid,' and kept checking his phone." She finally glanced up at her father. "Miss Hayes actually talks to me like I'm a real person." "You are a real person," Mike said firmly. "The most real person I know." Lily smiled, then returned to her book, the conversation clearly over in her mind. Mike set the soup on the coffee table beside her and checked the time. Mrs. Watkins would be arriving soon, and he needed to get ready. He changed into his cleanest jeans and a button-down shirt he usually reserved for parent-teacher conferences. After assuring himself that Lily was comfortable and Mrs. Watkins was settled in with instructions for Lily's medicine, he headed out. The Hayes Automotive dealership was located on the outskirts of Cedar Creek, a gleaming facility that stood in stark contrast to Wilson's cramped garage. New and used vehicles lined the spacious lot, everything from practical sedans to luxury SUVs. The service department occupied a separate building behind the main showroom, its large windows offering a view of the clean, organized workspace inside. Mike parked his truck at the far end of the lot, suddenly self-conscious of its worn appearance among the shiny inventory. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror, ran a hand through his hair, and took a deep breath before heading toward the main entrance. The showroom was air-conditioned and smelled of new leather and coffee. A receptionist greeted him with a professional smile. "Welcome to Hayes Automotive. How can I help you today?" "I'm here to see Ms. Hayes," Mike said. "I'm Mike Reynolds. She's expecting me." The receptionist's eyebrows rose slightly, but her smile remained in place. "Of course, Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Hayes mentioned you would be coming. She's in the conference room. I'll let her know you're here." Mike waited, feeling increasingly out of place among the luxury vehicles and well-dressed sales staff. A few minutes later, Eleanor emerged from a hallway, dressed in a tailored pantsuit that exuded authority. Her smile, however, was genuine when she spotted him. "Mike, right on time," she said, extending her hand. "I'm glad you could make it. How's Lily?" "Much better," Mike replied, shaking her hand briefly. "She's home resting." "Excellent. Please follow me." Eleanor led him through the showroom and into a corridor lined with offices. The conference room at the end featured a large glass table and comfortable leather chairs. Through the windows, Mike could see the service department in the adjacent building. "Coffee?" Eleanor offered, gesturing to a carafe on a side table. "No, thank you," Mike declined, too tense to consider adding caffeine to his system. Eleanor nodded and took a seat at the table, motioning for Mike to do the same. "So, I understand you're now available for immediate employment," she said, getting straight to the point. Mike blinked, caught off guard by her directness. "News travels fast." "Small town," Eleanor replied with a slight shrug. "Gary Wilson and I have crossed paths. He mentioned letting you go when I called this morning." "You called Wilson?" Mike asked, surprised. I wanted to verify your work history, Eleanor explained unapologetically. He spoke highly of your skills, by the way, said you were the best diagnostic technician he'd ever employed, just unreliable due to family obligations. Mike bristled at the characterization, but couldn't deny its partial truth. My daughter comes first, he said firmly. As she should, Eleanor agreed. Which is why I think this position would be ideal for you. She slid a folder across the table. Service manager. Full health benefits effective immediately. Salary of $78,000 annually, with performance bonuses. Flexible hours to accommodate. Your daughter's needs. Mike stared at the number on the offer letter. Sure, he was misreading it. It was more than double what he made at Wilson's. This can't be right. It's the standard compensation package for the position, Eleanor assured him. Actually, I adjusted it up slightly based on your experience. But I've never managed a department before, Mike protested. I've never even worked at a dealership. The technical expertise you can't teach, Eleanor countered. The management aspects you can learn. Besides, from what I've gathered, you're already effectively managing Wilson's operation, just without the title or compensation. There was some truth to that. Mike had been handling scheduling, ordering parts, and dealing with customer concerns for years, all while Wilson took the credit and profits. Why me? Mike asked, still struggling to understand. You must have dozens of qualified candidates who jump at this. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, studying him. Do you want the professional answer or the personal one? Both, Mike said, without hesitation. Professionally, our Cedar Creek location has been underperforming. The previous manager was all about numbers, not quality. Customer satisfaction was declining, and our reputation was suffering. Eleanor gestured toward the service department visible through the window. I need someone who understands both cars and people. Someone who can rebuild trust with our customers and inspire our technicians. Mike nodded slowly. That made sense, at least. Personally, Eleanor continued, her voice softening slightly. I believe in giving opportunities to people who deserve them but might not seek them out themselves. People like you, who put others first even when it costs them. Mike shifted uncomfortably under her perception. You've known me for all of 24 hours. I'm a good judge of character, Eleanor said simply. It's how I built this company. Mike turned the folder toward him, reading through the details more carefully. The benefits package was comprehensive, much better than anything he'd had before. Lily would be fully covered, including her asthma medications that had previously been only partially covered as a pre-existing condition. I'd need some flexibility, Mike said slowly. Lily has doctor's appointments, school events. As I said, the hours are adaptable, Eleanor assured him. I care about results, not punch cards. The service department is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. As long as you're available during peak hours and the department runs smoothly, I'm flexible on your specific schedule. It sounded too good to be true, which made Mike suspicious. Nothing in his life had ever come this easily. What's the catch? Eleanor smiled, seemingly appreciating his directness. The catch is that I expect results. Our service department needs a complete overhaul. Customer complaints need to be addressed, technician turnover reduced, and efficiency improved. It won't be easy. And if I can't deliver, then we part ways, Eleanor said simply. But I wouldn't be offering you this position if I didn't believe you could succeed. Mike looked again at the offer letter, then back at Eleanor. I'd need to start next week. Lily needs to be fully recovered before I begin something new. Done, Eleanor said without hesitation. Take the rest of this week to get her back on her feet. We'll start Monday at 9 a.m. She paused, then added, There's one more thing. Mike tensed, waiting for the real catch to emerge. The position comes with a company vehicle, Eleanor continued. Nothing flashy, but reliable, a demonstration of our confidence in our products. Mike stared at Eleanor, certain he had misheard. A company vehicle? Standard for management positions? Eleanor explained, rising from her chair. Let me show you. Still dazed, Mike followed Eleanor through a side door that led directly to the lot. The late afternoon sun glinted off the rows of vehicles, from practical sedans to luxury SUVs. Eleanor walked with purpose toward a section near the main building, where several mid-range models were parked. "This would be yours," she said, stopping beside a dark blue Ford Explorer. It was a current year model, not the absolute top trim, but well-equipped. Four-wheel drive for our winters, plenty of space for Lily's things, and excellent safety ratings. Mike ran his hand along the Explorer's sleek surface, trying to process everything. "I can't accept all this," he said finally. "The salary, benefits, now a vehicle. It's too much for someone you barely know." Eleanor's professional demeanor softened slightly. "Mike, I understand your hesitation. In your position, I'd probably feel the same way. But I'm not offering charity. I'm making a business decision." She produced a key fob from her pocket. "Here, take it for a test drive. Get comfortable with it." When Mike hesitated, she pressed the fob into his hand. "Consider it research. You need to understand our product if you're going to manage the service department." Put that way, Mike couldn't refuse. He accepted the key, feeling its weight, both literal and symbolic, in his palm. "Just around the block," he conceded. "Take as long as you need," Eleanor replied. "I have calls to make anyway. Come find me in my office when you're done. First door on the right, past the reception desk." As Eleanor walked back toward the main building, Mike stood beside the Explorer, emotions churning. He'd come to this meeting expecting to beg for a job, any job, to keep himself and Lily afloat. Instead, he was being handed an opportunity that defied belief. The Explorer started with a quiet purr that spoke of quality engineering. The interior smelled of new leather and featured technology, far beyond what he was accustomed to in his old truck. As he adjusted the mirrors and seat, Mike caught sight of Lily's booster seat in his rearview mirror, a visual reminder of why he needed to make this work. He pulled out of the dealership and onto the main road, letting himself imagine what this vehicle would mean for their lives. No more breaking down in the middle of winter, no more embarrassment when dropping Lily off at school events, no more cramming groceries into a cab that was already cluttered with tools and parts. As Mike drove past familiar landmarks of Cedar Creek, he felt a growing certainty. This opportunity wasn't just about a better job or a nicer vehicle. It represented a chance to give Lily the stability she deserved, to stop living paycheck to paycheck, to finally get ahead instead of merely surviving. By the time he returned to the dealership 20 minutes later, his decision was made. He parked the Explorer in its original spot and headed into the main building to find Eleanor. Her office reflected her personality, organized, elegant, but not ostentatious. Large windows overlooked the sales floor, allowing her to observe operations. While maintaining privacy, Eleanor was on the phone when he knocked on the open door, but she waved him in, wrapping up her call. "So, what did you think?" she asked after hanging up. "It's a beautiful vehicle," Mike admitted. "Way beyond anything I've driven before." Eleanor smiled, "but not beyond what you deserve." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Have you had a chance to think about the offer?" Mike nodded, taking a seat. "I have questions." "I'd be concerned if you didn't," Eleanor replied. "Why Cedar Creek?" Mike asked. "You mentioned this location has been underperforming, but there must be more to it. We're not exactly a major market." Eleanor seemed pleased by the question. "Perceptive. Cedar Creek was our first location outside of Portland. My father opened it 30 years ago when this was just a small family business. It's the foundation everything else was built on." She leaned forward slightly. "And frankly, it's personal. Cedar Creek supported us when we were getting started. I won't abandon it just because larger markets might offer better returns." Mike nodded, understanding loyalty to one's roots. "And the previous manager? What happened?" Bradley was from corporate. "Headquarters," Eleanor explained. "He knew the business side, but not the people side. Treated customers like numbers and employees like replaceable parts. When quarterly targets weren't met, he started cutting corners on service to boost profits." Her expression hardened. "That's not how Hayes Automotive operates." "So you fired him?" "I offered him a choice, improve or move on. He chose the latter." Eleanor's voice was matter-of-fact. "The same choice I'm offering you, though in reverse. Stay where you are or move forward with us." Mike took a deep breath. "I accept the position," he said firmly, "but I need everything in writing, including the flexibility for Lily's needs." Eleanor smiled, reaching into a drawer and pulling out a complete contract. "Already prepared. Take it home, read it carefully, have a lawyer review it if you wish. Sign it when you're comfortable." Mike accepted the thick document, surprised at her thoroughness. "Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Eleanor said, with certainty that both unsettled and reassured him. "Now take the Explorer home. Consider it yours starting today. The paperwork is in the glove compartment." "But I haven't even signed the contract yet," Mike protested. "Professional courtesy," Eleanor replied with a dismissive wave. "Besides, I have a feeling Lily would enjoy riding home in it rather than a taxi." Mike couldn't argue with that logic. "About my old truck?" "We can send someone to collect it from the hospital tomorrow," Eleanor offered. "Or, if you prefer, we can discuss a trade-in value once you've officially started." The thoroughness of her planning was impressive. Mike stood, extending his hand. "Thank you, Ms. Hayes." "Eleanor, please," she corrected, shaking his hand firmly. "Welcome to Hayes Automotive, Mike. I look forward to seeing what you accomplish." "Here." As Mike drove the Explorer home, his mind raced with plans and possibilities. The vehicle handled beautifully, responding to the slightest touch. The heated seats and climate control were luxuries he'd never experienced. But most exciting was the prospect of Lily's reaction when she saw it. When he pulled up to their apartment building, Mrs. Watkins was at the window with Lily. His daughter's eyes widened comically as he stepped out of the shiny SUV. By the time he reached their unit, Lily was waiting at the door, still in her pajamas, but vibrating with excitement. "Whose car is that?" she demanded, peering past him toward the parking lot. "It's mine," Mike said, unable to suppress his smile. "Well, the company's, but I get to use it." "You got the job," Lily exclaimed, throwing her arms around his waist despite still being weak from her illness. "I got the job," Mike confirmed, hugging her gently. "And wait until you hear about the butterflies." Lily's eyes grew enormous. "The car place really has butterflies?" Mike laughed. "No, but it has something even better. How about we talk about it over dinner? Are you hungry?" They ordered pizza to celebrate, a rare treat that made the occasion feel even more special. As they ate in their small living room, Mike explained his new position in terms Lily could understand. "So you're going to be the boss?" she asked between. "Bates, sort of," Mike clarified. "I'll be in charge of the part that fixes cars, not the part that sells them, and we'll have more money for medicine and stuff." Lily's directness was both heartbreaking and endearing. "Yes," Mike assured her, "and better insurance, so we won't have to worry so much about the bills when you get sick." Lily nodded sagely. "That's good. I heard you telling the doctor you were worried about money." Mike made a mental note to be more careful about what he discussed within Lily's earshot. She absorbed everything, even when she seemed distracted. "Well, things are going to be easier now, but there might be some changes too. I'll have different hours, maybe work some Saturdays." "But not all the time, right?" Lily asked, suddenly, concerned. "You'll still come to my school play next month? I'm a butterfly. I wouldn't miss it for anything," Mike promised. And that's the best part of this new job. I can take time off when you need me to be there." Satisfied with this assurance, Lily returned to her pizza, already planning how they should decorate the new car for Christmas. After putting Lily to bed, Mike settled at the kitchen table with the contract. He read it carefully, looking for hidden catches or unreasonable terms. To his surprise, everything was as Eleanor had described: salary, benefits, flexibility, and the vehicle agreement. There was even a clause specifically addressing time off for family emergencies and school events. Mike had never signed an employment contract before. At Wilson's, it had been a handshake agreement, his hours and pay subject to change based on business needs. This document represented security he'd never experienced in his working life. He signed it without further hesitation, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Lily continued to improve, her energy returning gradually. Mike used the time to organize their apartment, catching up on laundry and clearing out the clutter that had accumulated during months of working overtime. On Sunday, they took the Explorer for a drive around town, stopping for ice cream and visiting a park Lily had always wanted to explore, but that had been too far to walk to from their apartment. Monday morning arrived with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Mike dropped Lily off at Mrs. Watkins' apartment. She would stay home from school for another few days, as Dr. Brennan had recommended, and headed to the dealership in the Explorer that still felt surreal to drive. The service department was already bustling when he arrived at 8:45. Eleanor met him at the entrance, professional in a tailored suit, but with a warmth in her greeting that put him at ease. "Ready for your first day?" she asked, leading him toward what would be his office. "As ready as I'll ever be," Mike replied honestly. The space was modest but functional, with a desk, computer, and windows overlooking both the service bays and the customer waiting area. A door connected directly to the shop floor, while another led to the customer service counter. "I took the liberty of arranging an all-staff meeting at 9, Eleanor informed him. "Brief introductions, then I'll leave." "You to get acquainted with the team?" Mike nodded, his throat suddenly dry. "How many technicians are there?" 6 full-time, 3 part-time, Eleanor replied, plus 2 service advisors who interface with customers and a parts manager. 13 total, including you. 13 people who would be looking to him for leadership starting in 15 minutes. Mike swallowed hard, but straightened his shoulders. He could do this. It was just another challenge, and he'd faced plenty of those. The team gathered in the break room at 9 sharp. Mike recognized a few faces from around town, but most were strangers. They eyed him with mixtures of curiosity, skepticism, and, in a few cases, open hostility. Eleanor made the introductions concise but positive, emphasizing Mike's technical expertise and fresh perspective. She didn't mention his lack of management experience, for which he was grateful. After outlining her expectations for the department's improvement, she turned the floor over to Mike and departed with an encouraging nod. Facing his new team alone, Mike took a breath and decided honesty was the best approach. "I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers," he began. "I've spent the last 8 years turning wrenches just like many of you. What I do know is that there's no substitute for quality work and treating customers with respect." He noticed a few subtle nods among the technicians. "Over the next few days, I want to meet with each of you individually. I need to understand how things have been running and where we can improve. My door is always open, and I'm not above getting my hands dirty when we're backed up." This earned a few more nods, and even a hint of a smile from one of the older technicians. "For today, let's carry on with the current schedule. I'll be observing, learning the systems, and available if you need me. Questions?" A service advisor raised her hand. The previous manager had pretty strict quotas for each bay. "Will you be continuing that system?" Mike considered the question carefully. "I believe in efficiency, but not at the expense of quality. Let's evaluate the current metrics before making any changes. This seemed to satisfy her. A few more questions followed, mostly practical concerns about scheduling and parts ordering. By the time the meeting concluded, some of the tension had dissipated. Mike had passed the first test. He hadn't immediately alienated his team. The remainder of the day passed in a whirlwind of information. Mike met with each department individually, reviewed the computer systems, and observed the workflow. By late afternoon, he had identified several immediate issues that needed addressing, from inefficient parts ordering to poor communication between service advisors and technicians. At 5 o'clock, he received a text from Mrs. Watkins saying Lily was asking for him. Mike packed up his notes, informed the closing supervisor he was leaving, and headed out. As he crossed the showroom toward the exit, Eleanor emerged from her office. "Calling it a day?" she asked. "Lily needs me," Mike explained, half expecting disapproval, despite their agreement about flexibility. Instead, Eleanor nodded. "Family first. How was your first day?" "Overwhelming," Mike admitted, "but productive. I've got some ideas I'd like to discuss with you tomorrow, if you have time." "I'll make time," Eleanor assured him. "Go home to your daughter. This place has survived worse than one evening without you." The validation of his priorities left Mike momentarily speechless. He managed a grateful nod before heading out to the Explorer. When he arrived home, Lily was sitting on the couch with a book, her face brightening when he walked in. "You're early," she exclaimed. "I told you, this job was different," Mike said, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Lily declared. "Mrs. Watkins said my fever's all gone. Can I go to school tomorrow?" "Let's give it one more day," Mike suggested, feeling her forehead to confirm it was indeed cool. "How about I take you to the garage tomorrow instead?" "You can see where I work now," Lily's eyes widened. "Can I meet Miss Hayes again?" "Maybe," Mike said. "She's pretty busy running the whole company." "I drew her something," Lily announced, reaching for a piece of paper on the coffee table. "It's a butterfly car." The drawing showed a car with elaborately decorated butterfly wings attached to its sides. Below it, in Lily's careful handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for helping my dad." "It's beautiful," Mike said, genuinely impressed by the level of detail. "I'm sure she'll love it." "You'll give it to her?" Lily asked anxiously. "First thing tomorrow," Mike promised, carefully setting the drawing in his messenger bag. That night, as Mike reviewed his notes from the day, he found himself drafting a comprehensive plan for the service department. The issues were clearer than he'd expected. Bradley had focused on quick turnover rather than quality service, leaving customers dissatisfied and technicians frustrated. The fixes wouldn't be instant, but with the right approach, Mike was confident he could turn things around. The next few days established a new rhythm for the Reynolds household. Mike would take Lily to school, once she was cleared to return, before heading to the dealership. He arranged his schedule to allow him to pick her up each afternoon, bringing her to the waiting area of the service department, where she could do homework while he finished his day. The staff quickly took to her, especially the service advisors, who delighted in her curious questions and colorful drawings. Eleanor made a point of visiting the service department regularly, ostensibly to check on Mike's progress, but often spending time chatting with Lily as well. She had been genuinely touched by the butterfly car drawing, which now hung framed in her office. By the end of his second week, Mike had implemented several changes to the department's operations. He'd restructured the scheduling system to allow more realistic timeframes for complex repairs, established a direct communication channel between technicians and service advisors, and instituted a quality check protocol before any vehicle was returned to a customer. The results were already noticeable. Customer complaints had decreased, and the technicians reported higher job satisfaction. Even the parts department was running more efficiently with the new ordering system Mike had developed based on his years of experience at Wilson's. On Friday afternoon, Eleanor stopped by his office as he was reviewing the week's performance metrics. "You've been busy," she observed, nodding toward the whiteboard covered in workflow diagrams. "Just getting started," Mike replied, setting aside his papers, "but we're headed in the right direction." "The numbers agree with you," Eleanor said, placing a folder on his desk. "Service department revenue is up 12% compared to last month, while costs have decreased by 8%. Mike raised his eyebrows, impressed despite himself. "That's faster than I expected." "Happy customers return, and they refer others," Eleanor stated simply. She sat in the chair across from his desk, her posture relaxing slightly. "How's Lily adjusting to the new schedule?" "She loves it," Mike said with a smile. "Especially the afternoons here. I think she's learning more about cars from the technicians than she is about math at school." Eleanor laughed. "She's certainly charmed everyone. Tommy in parts is apparently teaching her inventory management." "She mentioned something about logistical efficiency at dinner last night," Mike confirmed with a chuckle. "I'm not sure whether to be impressed or concerned." A comfortable silence fell between them, surprising in its ease. Over the past 2 weeks, their professional relationship had developed a rhythm of mutual respect. Eleanor valued Mike's practical experience and straightforward approach, while he appreciated her business acumen and unwavering commitment to quality. "I have a proposition for you," Eleanor said finally, her tone shifting to something more formal. Mike leaned back in his chair, an echo of their first meeting at the hospital, sending a ripple of déjà vu through him. "Another one?" Eleanor's eyes held a glint of excitement that made Mike both curious and wary. "The Portland location," she began, leaning forward slightly. "Our service director there is retiring next month. The position oversees 5 dealerships in the Portland metro area, including our flagship store." Mike blinked, processing her words. "And you're telling me this because I'd like you to consider taking the position," Eleanor stated. Simply, Mike's mouth opened, then closed again. Finally, he found his voice. "That's absurd. I've been a service manager for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, you've accomplished more than Bradley did in 6 months, Eleanor countered. "The director role is less about turning wrenches and more about implementing systems and developing people, both things you've demonstrated considerable talent for." Mike shook his head. "I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I can't uproot Lily, her school, her doctors, our apartment. Our life is here." Eleanor nodded, having anticipated this response. "The position wouldn't start for 6 weeks. That gives you time to finish the quarter here and make arrangements. We'd cover all relocation expenses, of course, and assist with finding housing near the best schools." She slid another folder across the desk. "The compensation package is substantial, enough to ensure Lily could attend any school you choose, see any specialists she needs." Mike opened the folder, his eyes widening at the figure on the first page. It was nearly triple his current salary. "This is excessive." "It's the market rate for the responsibility," Eleanor corrected. 5 locations, over 60 service employees, and a parts inventory worth millions. The director also receives profit sharing, which could add significantly to the base compensation. Mike closed the folder, pushing it back toward her. "I'm sorry, but Portland isn't an option. I appreciate the opportunity, but I need stability. For Lily right now, not another major change." Rather than disappointment, Eleanor's expression showed understanding. "I thought you might say that. Which brings me to option 2. Mike raised an eyebrow, waiting. "Stay in Cedar Creek, continue as service manager, but take on additional responsibilities as my consultant for the other locations." Eleanor's gaze was steady. "You've identified inefficiencies and implemented solutions here that could benefit our entire organization. I'd like you to document your methods, train other managers, and help standardize our approach across all dealerships. A corporate position. Based here? Mike clarified. Eleanor nodded. You'd travel occasionally, 1 or 2 days a month at most, but otherwise remain in Cedar Creek. It would mean a promotion to Regional Service Operations Manager and a 40% increase to your current salary. Mike considered this alternative. It would mean more responsibility, but without uprooting Lily. The additional income would allow them to move to a better apartment, maybe even start saving for a house. That might work. Think about it, Eleanor suggested, rising from her chair. Both options remain open until the end of the month. No pressure, no expectations. She paused at the door. Though I will say, Lily mentioned she'd love to visit the Butterfly Museum in Portland someday. Mike chuckled despite himself. You fight dirty, Hayes. Eleanor's smile was unapologetic. I prefer to think of it as identifying motivational factors. With a small wave, she departed, leaving Mike with much to contemplate. That evening, as he and Lily ate dinner in their apartment, Mike found himself studying his daughter with new eyes. At 6, she was already showing remarkable resilience and adaptability. The past month had brought significant changes to their lives, yet she had embraced each one with enthusiasm. Penny for your thoughts, Pumpkin? Mike asked, noticing her pushing carrots around her plate. Lily looked up, her expression serious. Dad, are we rich now? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? Tommy in parts said you're making the big bucks now that you're the boss, Lily explained. And we have the fancy car. Melissa at school said only rich people have cars like that. Mike considered how to respond. We're not rich, but we're doing better than before, he said carefully. We don't have to worry so much about money for important things like your medicine. Lily nodded, processing this. Could we move to a place with a backyard? Jenny has a swing set in her backyard. Maybe, Mike replied, an idea forming. Would you be okay with moving to a new place? It might mean changing schools. Lily shrugged. I like my teacher, but the kids aren't very nice sometimes. They make fun of my second-hand clothes. The admission pierced Mike's heart. They do? Why didn't you tell me? You were already worried about so many things, Lily said with a wisdom beyond her years. And it doesn't matter what they think. You always say it's what's inside that counts. Mike reached across the table to squeeze her small hand. That's right, but you should always tell me if something's bothering you, okay? That's my job as your dad. Lily nodded, then brightened. Ms. Hayes said there's a museum in Portland with real butterflies that fly around. Could we go there sometime? Mike's eyebrows rose. When did she tell you that? Today, when you were on the phone, Lily explained. She showed me pictures on her computer. There's thousands of butterflies, and sometimes they land on you. Mike made a mental note to discuss boundaries with Eleanor regarding conversations with Lily about Portland attractions. We'll see. It's a long drive just for a museum. Ms. Hayes said there's lots of cool things in Portland, Lily continued enthusiastically. Like a science museum with a submarine and a zoo with elephants and a mountain with snow even in summer. Mike sighed internally. It seemed Eleanor had been more strategic in her conversations with Lily than he'd realized. Those do sound interesting. We'll plan a visit someday, I promise. Lily beamed, satisfied with this commitment. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Mike sat at the kitchen table with both folders Eleanor had given him. The Portland offer was undeniably generous, life-changing money that would ensure Lily would never want for anything. But it would mean leaving behind the stability they'd just established, starting over in a new city. The consultant role was less disruptive, but would introduce new challenges. Regular travel, even limited to a couple days monthly, meant finding reliable overnight care for Lily. The increased responsibilities would demand more of his time and energy, potentially taking away from his availability for his daughter. The third option, one Eleanor hadn't explicitly offered, was to simply continue in his current role. The salary was already more than adequate, the hours flexible, and Lily was thriving in the new arrangement. They could move to a better apartment, maybe even a small house with that backyard Lily wanted, and build the stable life he'd always envisioned. Yet something about that path felt incomplete now. The past few weeks had awakened ambitions Mike had long suppressed. He enjoyed the challenge of operational improvement, found satisfaction in developing systems and leading a team. The consultant role would allow him to expand that impact while remaining rooted in Cedar Creek. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Eleanor. No pressure, but the Butterfly Museum has a special exhibition next month. Rare species from South America, just FYI. Mike shook his head, typing back, "Psychological warfare via butterfly facts is a unique negotiating tactic." The response came quickly. "I prefer to think of it as presenting all relevant data to aid decision-making." Despite himself, Mike smiled. In the short time he'd known her, Eleanor Hayes had upended his life in ways he never could have anticipated. From a chance encounter on a rainy night to job offers that could secure Lily's future, it seemed almost unreal. Yet the woman herself remained something of an enigma. Professional and focused at work, warm and surprisingly playful with Lily, challenging and direct with him. Mike had glimpsed moments of personal connection beyond their professional relationship, but Eleanor maintained careful boundaries that he respected. As he prepared for bed, Mike came to a decision. The consultant role offered the best balance of opportunity and stability. He would accept it, but with conditions to ensure Lily remained his priority. Eleanor valued directness. She would appreciate a straightforward negotiation. The following Monday, Mike arrived at the dealership early. He'd spent the weekend thinking through his approach and discussing potential changes with Lily, who had enthusiastically supported the idea of a new home with space for a garden. Eleanor was already in her office when he knocked on the door. Reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed documents. She looked up, a smile of recognition crossing her face as she gestured him in. "I've made a decision," Mike said without preamble, taking the seat across from her desk. Eleanor removed, her glasses giving him her full attention. "I'm listening." "I'll accept the consultant position," Mike said firmly, "but I have conditions." Eleanor's expression remained neutral, though a flicker of something, approval perhaps, crossed her face. "I expected nothing less. Please continue." Mike leaned forward, gathering his thoughts. "First, I need a formal agreement regarding travel. No more than 2 nights away per month, with at least 2 weeks' notice before any trip." Eleanor nodded. "Reasonable. We can schedule quarterly visits. To each location planned well in advance. Second," Mike continued, "I want to build my own team here in Cedar Creek. I'll need to promote someone to handle day-to-day operations when I'm developing systems for the other locations." "You have someone in mind?" Eleanor asked. "Diana Matthews." Mike replied without hesitation. "She's been a service advisor here for 5 years, knows the customers, understands the workflow, and has excellent people skills. She just lacks the opportunity." Eleanor made a note. "I've observed Diana. Good choice. What else?" "Housing assistance," Mike said, surprising himself with his boldness. "Lily mentioned wanting a backyard. With the salary increase, we could afford a small house, but saving for a down payment would take time." Eleanor considered this. Hayes Automotive has a relocation package for executives. It typically includes a housing allowance or low-interest loan for down payment assistance. We could extend that to you as part of this promotion, even though you're not technically relocating. Mike nodded, satisfied. "Last condition, college fund for Lily." At this, Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "Elaborate." Part of my compensation should be directed to a 529 plan for Lily's education, Mike explained. I want to ensure her future is secure, regardless of what happens with my position down the road. A smile spread across Eleanor's face, genuine, not the polished, professional expression she typically wore. That might be the most father thing I've ever heard someone negotiate for. She leaned back in her chair. Hayes Automotive has a tuition matching program for employees. We typically contribute up to $5,000 annually toward continuing education. We could apply that toward Lily's future education instead of yours. That would be perfect, Mike agreed, relief washing over him. He'd expected resistance to at least some of his requests. Is that all? Eleanor asked, her tone suggesting she'd been prepared for more. Mike hesitated, then decided to push his luck. One more thing. I want to understand what's happening here. Eleanor's brow furrowed. I'm not sure I follow. This, Mike gestured between them. A month ago, I was a mechanic at a small garage, barely making ends meet. Now I'm being offered an executive position with benefits most people only dream about. Why me? What's the real story here? Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, studying him with an intensity that made Mike fight the urge to fidget. Finally, she sighed and removed her professional mask completely. Do you know why I was driving that Shelby the night we met? She asked. Mike shook his head. I was visiting my father's grave, Eleanor said softly. Robert Hayes founded this company. With a single dealership in Cedar Creek 40 years ago. He died 2 years ago, heart attack at his desk, still working at 73. A sad smile crossed her face. That Shelby was his pride and joy. I take it to visit him on his birthday, every year. Mike remained silent, understanding the significance of what she was sharing. My father built this business on 2 principles, Eleanor continued. Quality service and investing in people others overlooked. He hired veterans when no one would. Touch them, gave second chances to people with records, promoted from within when others were recruiting from business schools. Her eyes met Mike's directly. He would have hired you in a heartbeat. So this is about honoring your father? Mike asked, beginning to understand. Partly, Eleanor acknowledged, but it's also about what I saw that night in the rain. Someone who stopped to help a stranger when they had every reason not to. Someone who put their child first, always. Someone with natural talent being wasted at a shop that didn't value them. She leaned forward. My father taught me to recognize potential. You have it in abundance, Mike. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable. Mike swallowed past the unexpected tightness in his throat. Thank you for the explanation, and for the opportunity. Eleanor nodded, her professional demeanor. Returning, I'll have HR draw up the revised offer with your conditions included. We can aim for you to start the new role at the beginning of next month, which gives us 2 weeks to promote Diana and ensure a smooth transition. Perfect, Mike agreed, standing to shake her hand. As their palms met, he felt the significance of the moment, a true turning point in his life and Lily's. One more thing, Eleanor added as he turned to leave. That butterfly museum in Portland, the exhibition opens next Saturday. I happen to have 3 tickets if you and Lily are interested. Consider it a celebration of your promotion. Mike smiled, shaking his head at her persistence. You had those tickets before I even made my decision, didn't you? Eleanor's eyes twinkled. I prefer to be prepared for all outcomes. Her expression softened. Lily would love it, and it would give you a chance to see Portland without the pressure of relocating there. I'll ask her, Mike conceded, but I already know what her answer will be. The following Saturday found Mike, Lily, and Eleanor walking through the vibrant conservatory of the Pacific Northwest Butterfly Haven. Lily's eyes were wide with wonder as colourful wings fluttered around them, occasionally landing on the special feeding stations or the bright flowers that filled the humid space. "Dad, look!" Lily whispered excitedly as a large blue morpho butterfly landed on her outstretched finger. Her face was a portrait of pure joy, the kind Mike hadn't seen enough of in their challenging years. "Hold very still," Eleanor coached, her own expression softening as she watched Lily's delight. "They're attracted to bright colors and sweet scents." Mike observed the interaction, struck by how natural it seemed. Eleanor had none of the awkwardness many adults displayed around children. She spoke to Lily directly, without condescension, answering her endless questions with patience and genuine interest. As they explored the museum, Mike found himself relaxing. The day had a surprising ease to it, 3 people enjoying a shared experience rather than a boss and employee navigating a complex relationship. When Lily ran ahead to examine a chrysalis display, Mike turned to Eleanor. "Thank you for this," he said simply. "It means a lot to her." "And to you?" Eleanor asked perceptively. Mike smiled. "It's been a long time since I could give her an experience like this. Work and medical bills don't leave much room for butterflies." "Balance is important," Eleanor observed. "Something I haven't always been good at myself." A shadow crossed her face briefly. "My father built an empire but missed most of my childhood doing it. I promised myself I wouldn't make the same mistake, yet here I am, married to the business he created." The personal admission surprised Mike. "No family of your own?" Eleanor shook her head. "Almost once. It didn't work out." She kept her eyes on Lily at the display. He couldn't understand why the company always came first. "Said I was trying to earn the approval of a man who was no longer there to give it. Was he right?" Mike asked gently. "Partly," Eleanor admitted. "But it was never that simple. I genuinely love what I do. Building something, creating opportunities, solving problems. It's fulfilling in a way he couldn't understand." She glanced at Mike. "I think you get that, though." He nodded. The past month at Hayes Automotive had awakened something in him, a passion for improvement, for leadership, for building systems that worked. It wasn't just about the paycheck anymore. Lily bounded back to them, breaking the moment. "Can we see the reptile exhibit next? They have tiny poison dart frogs." The rest of the day passed in a blur of exhibits, lunch at a restaurant fancier than any Lily had experienced before, and a stop at the gift shop where Eleanor insisted on buying Lily a butterfly kit to raise her own painted ladies at home. By the time they headed back to Cedar Creek in Eleanor's Range Rover, she'd driven today, the Shelby apparently reserved for private pilgrimages, Lily was asleep in the back seat, clutching her new treasures. "She's quite remarkable," Eleanor commented, glancing in the rearview mirror at the sleeping child. "She has your determination." "And her mother's charm when she chooses to use it," Mike added wryly. Eleanor kept her eyes on the road. "You don't speak of her mother often." "Not much to say," Mike replied, his tone cooling slightly. "Julia decided parenthood was cramping her style. She shows up every few months when guilt strikes, then disappears again. Lily's learned not to expect much." "That must be difficult for both of you," Eleanor observed neutrally. Mike shrugged. "We manage. Lily knows she's loved. That's what matters." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the highway unspooling before them as the city gave way to smaller towns and eventually the familiar approach to Cedar Creek. As they neared the exit, Eleanor spoke again. "I'm hosting a charity gala next weekend at the Portland location," she said, her tone carefully casual. "Classic car auction to benefit children's hospitals in the region. As the new regional manager, your presence would be appropriate." Mike glanced at her profile, suspecting there was more to the invitation. "Appropriate but not required?" A smile tugged at Eleanor's lips. "Correct. though it would be a good opportunity to meet other executives and managers from the various locations. "I'd need a sitter for Lily," Mike said, already running through limited options in his mind. "Actually," Eleanor began, "the invitation extends to Lily as well. It's a family-friendly event, with activities for children in a separate area. Many executives bring their families." Mike raised an eyebrow. "A charity gala doesn't sound very six-year-old friendly." "The children's area has supervised activities, entertainment, and dinner suited to younger palates," Eleanor explained. "Hayes Automotive has always been family-oriented. We ensure events accommodate that value." Mike considered the invitation. A formal gala would be well outside his comfort zone, and he didn't exactly have appropriate attire for such an event. Yet the professional benefits were undeniable. Networking with colleagues, establishing his new position within the company hierarchy. "I don't own a suit," he admitted. "That's easily remedied," Eleanor replied without missing a beat. "Consider it a business expense. The company can arrange for a fitting at Markham's in Cedar Creek. They're quite good, despite their small-town location." Mike hadn't even known Cedar Creek had a proper men's clothier. "I'll think about it," Eleanor nodded, accepting his non-commitment. "The offer stands. No pressure." When they reached Mike's apartment building, Eleanor insisted on helping. Carry the sleeping Lily inside, despite Mike's protests that he could manage. As they settled Lily in her bed, still clutched around her butterfly cocoon kit, Eleanor surveyed the small apartment with observant eyes. Mike felt a flash of self-consciousness. While he kept their home immaculately clean, there was no disguising its limitations. The water stain on the ceiling from the upstairs neighbor's overflowed bathtub, the mismatched furniture collected over years from thrift stores, the cramped quarters that served as their entire world. "Sorry about the mess," he said automatically, though there wasn't one. Eleanor shook her head. "You've created a home here," she observed. "That's what matters." She gestured to the wall covered in Lily's artwork, the bookshelves overflowing. With well-loved children's titles, the family photos arranged carefully on the single-side table. "She feels safe and loved here. That's worth more than square footage." The simple understanding in her words eased Mike's discomfort. "Thanks for today," he said as he walked her to the door. "Lily will be talking about those butterflies for weeks." "I enjoyed it too," Eleanor replied with surprising warmth. "More than I expected to." She hesitated at the threshold. "Think about the gala. No pressure, but I think you'd both enjoy it." After she left, Mike sat at the kitchen table, turning over the day's events in his mind. Something was shifting in his relationship with Eleanor Hayes, moving beyond the boundaries of employer and employee into what exactly? Friendship seemed too simple a term. Yet anything beyond that was complicated by their professional connection. Whatever it was, Mike realized he valued it. Her insight, her straightforward manner, the way she saw Lily as a person rather than an obligation or an inconvenience. The invitation to the gala suggested she valued their connection too, beyond its business benefits. The following Monday, Mike stopped by Markham's Fine Clothing during his lunch break. The elderly proprietor took his measurements with practiced efficiency, asking about the occasion and making recommendations for appropriate styling. "Ms. Hayes called ahead," Mr. Markham mentioned as he noted Mike's shoulder width. "Said to put it on the Hayes Automotive account. She has excellent taste, suggested the charcoal gray rather than black, more versatile." Mike wasn't surprised. Eleanor had already arranged everything. Her efficiency was both impressive and occasionally unnerving. "How soon can it be ready?" "Friday afternoon," Mr. Markham promised. "Just in time for your Portland event." Mike hadn't actually confirmed. He was attending, but it seemed the decision had been made for him. Strangely, he found he didn't mind. When he told Lily about the gala that evening, her excitement was immediate and overwhelming. A real party With fancy dresses and everything, she gasped, eyes wide. Like Cinderella? Something like that, Mike chuckled. Though I don't think there will be any glass slippers. Lily's face fell slightly. I don't have a fancy dress, just my church dress, and it's too small now. Mike hadn't considered this aspect. Lily had outgrown most of her clothes over the summer, and they'd been focused on practical replacements rather than special occasion attire. We'll figure something out, Pumpkin. Maybe we can go shopping this weekend. Can Ms. Hayes help? Lily asked hopefully. She always looks so pretty. Mike hesitated. Involving Eleanor in something as personal as shopping for Lily's clothing seemed to cross a boundary, yet his daughter's hopeful expression was difficult to resist. I'll ask her, but she's very busy, Lily. Don't get your hopes up. The next day, Mike mentioned Lily's request to Eleanor as casually as possible while they reviewed the quarterly service metrics for the Cedar Creek location. Lily was wondering if you might have suggestions for where to find a dress for the gala, he said, keeping his tone light. Apparently my fashion sense doesn't inspire confidence. Eleanor looked up from the spreadsheets, a smile playing at her lips. I'd be happy to help. In fact, she hesitated, seeming almost uncertain for the first time since Mike had met her. If you're comfortable with it, I could take her shopping on Saturday morning. There's a wonderful children's boutique in Portland that would have perfect options. The offer caught Mike off guard. It was one thing for Eleanor to include Lily in museum trips or workplace visits, but a shopping expedition felt more personal, almost maternal in nature. That's very generous, but I wouldn't want to impose on your weekend. It's not an imposition, Eleanor assured him. I rarely have the opportunity to shop for little girls. It would be fun. She must have sensed his hesitation because she added, Of course, you're welcome to join us. We could make a day of it, shopping in the morning, lunch, perhaps visit that science museum Lily's been asking about. The suggestion of we and us hung in the air between them, carrying implications Mike wasn't entirely ready to examine. Yet the practical benefits were undeniable. Eleanor knew Portland and could efficiently navigate the shopping experience, and Lily would be thrilled with both the outing and her company. If you're sure it's not too much trouble, Mike finally relented. None at all, Eleanor replied, her smile widening. I'll pick you both up at 9 on Saturday. Saturday morning arrived with Lily bouncing on Mike's bed at 6:30 a.m., already dressed in what she deemed her nicest outfit, a slightly worn floral dress paired with her school cardigan. Is it time yet? She asked, her excitement palpable. Mike groaned, squinting at the clock. Not for another 2.5 hours, Pumpkin. Ms. Hayes isn't coming until 9. Lily flopped dramatically across the foot of his bed. But I need to get ready. You're already dressed, Mike pointed out, stifling a yawn. But my hair, Lily protested, and I need to feed my butterflies and make sure Mr. Whiskers looks presentable. Mike chuckled, giving up on additional sleep. All right, let's have breakfast first. Then we'll tackle the extensive grooming needs of your stuffed cat. By 8:45, Lily had changed outfits twice more, finally settling on leggings and a tunic that Eleanor had complimented during their museum visit. Mike had brewed a pot of coffee and was nursing his second cup when a gentle knock sounded at their. Dr. Lily raced to answer it, beaming as she threw it open to reveal Eleanor, casual yet elegant in slim jeans, a soft cashmere sweater and a light jacket. You're early, Lily exclaimed, delighted. I find it's best to allow extra time for adventures, Eleanor replied with a warm smile. She held up a small paper bag. I brought breakfast pastries in case anyone was hungry. I already had cereal, but I can always eat more, Lily declared, accepting the bag eagerly. A woman after my own heart, Eleanor chuckled, stepping inside. She glanced around, taking in the neat but modest apartment with appreciative eyes rather than judgment. Good morning, Mike. I hope the early start isn't an imposition. Mike shook his head, oddly pleased by her arrival. Lily's been ready since dawn. Coffee? Please, Eleanor accepted, following him to the small kitchen while Lily investigated the pastry selection. I brought the Range Rover, more comfortable for the drive than the Shelby. Practical, Mike nodded, pouring her coffee into their least-chipped mug. Cream, sugar, black is fine, Eleanor replied, accepting the mug with a grateful smile. I printed an itinerary if you're interested. She produced a folded paper from her purse. Children's boutique first, then men's fitting at Gramercy's. For any final adjustments to your suit, lunch at Riverside Grill, and the Science Museum in the afternoon. We should be back by early evening. Mike raised an eyebrow at the detailed planning. You've thought of everything. I like efficiency, Eleanor admitted with a small shrug. But we can deviate from the plan if something more interesting comes along. Miss Hayes, Lily called from the living room. These pastries have real chocolate in them. Only the best for butterfly experts, Eleanor called back, her expression softening. Mike studied her over his coffee cup. Today's Eleanor seemed different from the poised executive he was accustomed to, more relaxed, less guarded. The change was subtle but noticeable in the casual clothing, the loose waves of her hair, the unscheduled minutes for coffee in a cramped kitchen. Thank you for doing this, Mike said quietly. It means a lot to Lily. Eleanor met his gaze directly. It means a lot to me too, she admitted. Something unspoken passed between them, acknowledgement of a connection that transcended their professional relationship. The moment was broken by Lily's reappearance, chocolate smeared at the corner of her mouth. Can we go now? I'm ready. The drive to Portland passed quickly, filled with Lily's excited chatter about the butterfly cocoons that were due to hatch any day. Eleanor engaged her effortlessly, asking questions that revealed a surprising knowledge of lepidopterology. How do you know so much about butterflies? Mike asked during a rare lull in the conversation. Eleanor's eyes remained on the road, but a distant smile crossed her face. My mother was an amateur naturalist. She kept gardens specifically designed to attract different species. Monarchs were her favorite. A note of sadness entered her voice. She died when I was 11. Cancer. The butterfly garden was the one place I still felt close to her afterward. I'm sorry, Mike said simply, understanding the weight of such a loss. Eleanor nodded acknowledgement without further comment. In the back seat, Lily had gone quiet, absorbing the adult conversation with her usual perceptiveness. My mum's not dead, she finally offered, but she doesn't want to be a mum anymore. Me's simple statement hung in the air, its painful honesty striking in its delivery. Mike turned to look at his daughter, his heart aching at her matter-of-fact acceptance of abandonment. Eleanor caught his eye briefly before adjusting the rear view mirror to include Lily. Some people aren't ready for the responsibility of being parents, she said gently. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, Lily. It means they're missing out on knowing an extraordinary person. Lily considered this, then nodded solemnly. That's what Dad says too. Your dad is very wise, Eleanor affirmed, returning, her focus to the road. Mike swallowed past the tightness in his throat, touched by Eleanor's handling of the delicate subject. She'd validated Lily's feelings without disparaging Julia, something he himself sometimes struggled to achieve. The boutique Eleanor had selected occupied a charming storefront in Portland's Pearl District. Inside, soft lighting illuminated displays of children's clothing far more elegant than anything Mike would have considered for everyday wear. A sales associate greeted Eleanor by name, suggesting she was a regular patron, despite having no children of her own. Miss Hayes, lovely to see you again. Is this the young lady you called about? The woman smiled warmly at Lily. Yes, Rebecca, this is Lily, and her father, Mike. We're looking for something special for tomorrow evening's charity gala. Rebecca nodded, turning her full attention to Lily. Well, Miss Lily, we have several beautiful options. Do you have a favorite color? Blue, Lily answered without hesitation. Like morpho butterfly wings. A girl who knows her butterflies. Excellent taste, Rebecca approved. We have a few dresses in that exact shade. Would you like to see them? What followed was an experience unlike anything in Mike's previous parenting journey. Rebecca and Eleanor guided Lily through options with patience and enthusiasm, treating her preferences with genuine consideration. Mike found himself relegated to an observer's role, seated in a comfortable chair with a cup of complimentary coffee as Lily emerged from the dressing room in increasingly elaborate outfits. "What do you think of this one, Dad?" Lily twirled in a deep blue dress with a full skirt that shimmered subtly in the light. "You look beautiful, Pumpkin," Mike said honestly, though the words felt inadequate. She looked older somehow, a glimpse of the young woman she would eventually become. "It's perfect," Eleanor declared. "The color brings out your eyes." The price tag, which Mike glimpsed as Rebecca adjusted the sash, nearly caused him to choke on his coffee. Even with his new salary, spending that much on a dress Lily would likely outgrow within months seemed extravagant. Eleanor must have noticed his expression because she casually moved toward him while Lily returned to the dressing room for the final fitting. "Consider it my gift," she said quietly, "for making the gala a family affair." "That's very generous, but I can't accept," Mike began. "Every little girl deserves a special dress that makes her feel like magic," Eleanor interrupted, her tone gentle but firm. "My mother bought me one when I was Lily's age. I still remember how it felt to wear it." The personal admission gave Mike pause. Eleanor rarely spoke of her childhood or her mother. Before he could formulate a response, Lily emerged again, this time wearing a coordinating cardigan that Rebecca had suggested for the evening's cooler hours. "Look, Dad, it has pockets." Lily demonstrated this crucial feature, slipping her small hands into the hidden openings in the skirt seams. Mike couldn't help but laugh at her delight. "Well, that settles it. Every fancy dress needs pockets." While Rebecca packaged Lily's selections, Eleanor guided them toward a display of children's shoes. "Every princess needs glass slippers," she winked at Lily. "Or perhaps something more practical but equally special." By the time they left the boutique, Lily had acquired not only the dress and cardigan, but also patent leather shoes, a small handbag, and a ribbon for her hair, all in coordinating shades of blue. Mike had insisted on purchasing the shoes himself, a compromise Eleanor had gracefully accepted. Their next stop was Gramercy's, where Mike's suit awaited final adjustments. The dignified tailor fussed over the fit, making minor alterations while Lily and Eleanor offered opinions from plush chairs. Nearby, "A Windsor knot would suit your collar best," the tailor advised, demonstrating the technique with a sample tie. Ms. Hayes selected an excellent pattern, subtle but distinctive. Mike caught Eleanor's eye over the tailor's shoulder, raising an eyebrow at this further evidence of her involvement. She merely smiled, unrepentant. When Mike emerged from the fitting room in the completed ensemble, Lily gasped dramatically. "Dad, you look like a movie star!" The charcoal grey suit was indeed transformative, its tailored lines emphasizing his broad shoulders and athletic build in a way his usual work clothes never could. The subtle blue thread in the tie's pattern coordinated with Lily's dress, another detail Eleanor had apparently orchestrated. "Very handsome," Eleanor commented, her appreciation evident but professional. "The cut suits you perfectly." Mike studied his reflection, barely recognizing himself. The man in the mirror looked confident, successful, a far cry from the struggling mechanic who had stopped to help a stranded motorist just over a month ago. Lunch at Riverside Grill continued the day's surreal quality. The upscale restaurant overlooked the Willamette River, its floor-to-ceiling windows providing spectacular views of the water and city skyline. In his jeans and casual shirt, Mike might have felt out of place among the well-dressed patrons, but Eleanor's easy confidence set the tone. She knew the maître d' by name and secured them a prime table without waiting. "They have the best mac and cheese ever," Eleanor confided to Lily as they reviewed the children's menu. "With 3 kinds of cheese and little breadcrumbs on top." Lily's eyes widened with anticipation. "Better than Dad's." "Hey now," Mike protested with a laugh. "Don't go replacing my specialty just yet." "We'll have to compare," Eleanor suggested. "Perhaps a mac and cheese cook-off someday." The casual reference to future plans hung in the air between them. Mike found himself wondering what other activities Eleanor might envision sharing with them, and more surprisingly realized he welcomed the prospect. The meal was as excellent as promised, with Lily declaring the mac and cheese different from Dad's, but equally awesome. A diplomatic assessment that made both adults smile. Eleanor insisted Lily try a bite of her seared scallops, introducing the child to flavors she'd never experienced before. Mike watched their interaction with a mixture of emotions he couldn't quite define. "The Science Museum awaits," Eleanor announced as they finished dessert, a shared chocolate soufflé that had Lily's eyes rolling back in dramatic appreciation. "I hear there's a butterfly garden there too." "More butterflies," Lily cheered. Chocolate smeared once again at the corner of her mouth. The Science Museum proved to be the day's highlight for Lily. The interactive exhibits captured her imagination, especially the promised butterfly garden and a hands-on engineering station where children could build and test simple machines. Eleanor moved through the exhibits with them, her knowledge once again surprising Mike. "My father believed in practical education," she explained, as they watched Lily construct an elaborate pulley system. "Summers were spent in the garage learning how engines worked, not at summer camp making lanyards." "Is that why you went into the auto business?" Mike asked. Eleanor considered the question. "Partly. It was expected that I'd join the family business, but I discovered I genuinely loved it. The combination of technical precision and human interaction, helping people solve problems that matter to them." She glanced at him. "I suspect that's something you understand." Mike nodded. It was precisely what had drawn him to mechanical work initially, before financial pressures had reduced it to simply a means of survival. As the afternoon wore on, Lily's energy finally began to flag. By 5 o'clock, she was yawning between exhibits, her earlier enthusiasm dimming as fatigue set in. "I think someone's ready to head home," Mike observed, as Lily leaned against him during their exploration of the space exhibit. "One last stop first," Eleanor suggested. "The gift shop. Every successful expedition requires souvenirs." Despite Mike's protests, Eleanor encouraged Lily to select a small memento of their day. Predictably, she chose a butterfly identification guide and a small plush representation of the blue morpho she'd been fascinated by at the butterfly garden. The drive back to Cedar Creek was quieter, with Lily dozing in the back seat, clutching her new treasures. Mike and Eleanor maintained a comfortable conversation about work projects and the upcoming gala, their professional rapport having evolved into something more relaxed over the course of the day. As they neared Cedar Creek, Eleanor glanced at the sleeping child in her rearview mirror. "She's remarkable," she said softly, "so curious and resilient." "She's had to be," Mike replied, his own gaze fixed on his daughter's peaceful face. "But days like today, they help her just be a kid." "Thank you for that." Eleanor's expression softened. "It was my pleasure, truly. I can't remember the last time I spent a Saturday doing something so enjoyable. No exciting executive activities on weekends," Mike teased gently. Eleanor's laugh held a hint of self-deprecation. Board meetings, charity functions, networking. Events, all important but not exactly carefree. Today was refreshing. They pulled up to Mike's apartment building, the Range Rover looking distinctly out of place among the aged sedans and economy cars that populated the parking lot. Mike moved to wake Lily, but Eleanor stopped him with a light touch on his arm. "Let me help carry these packages up," she suggested. "No need to wake her yet." Together they gathered the day's purchases and a still sleeping Lily, who barely stirred as Mike lifted her from the back seat. Eleanor followed him up the 3 flights of stairs, bags dangling from both arms as she held doors open along the way. Inside the apartment, Mike carried Lily to her bedroom, gently tucking her in without changing her clothes. She could deal with wrinkled garments in the morning. When he returned to the living room, Eleanor had arranged the packages neatly on the coffee table and was examining the butterfly cocoon kit that occupied pride of place on the windowsill. "They should be emerging soon," she observed. "The chrysalises have darkened." "Lily checks them hourly," Mike said with a fond smile. "I'm surprised she's allowed herself to sleep and potentially miss the big event." Eleanor turned from the window, her expression unexpectedly serious. "Mike, I want to thank you." "For what?" he asked, confused. "I should be thanking you for today." "For allowing me to be part of this," Eleanor clarified, gesturing vaguely around the apartment. "Your lives. It's been—" She hesitated, seemingly searching for the right words. "Grounding. A reminder of what matters beyond quarterly reports and market share." The vulnerability in her usually composed demeanor caught Mike off guard. "You're welcome any time," he found himself saying, the words emerging before he could consider their implications. "Lily adores you." Something shifted in Eleanor's expression at Mike's words. The professional mask she typically maintained had completely fallen away, revealing a vulnerability he'd only glimpsed before. "And what about you, Mike?" she asked softly. "How do you feel about my presence in your lives?" The directness of the question caught him off guard. Mike was accustomed to Eleanor's business efficiency, but this was different, personal in a way that demanded equal honesty. He began, then paused, gathering his thoughts. "A month ago, I was drowning, working a dead-end job, barely covering Lily's medical bills, 1 car repair away from disaster." He met her gaze steadily. "Then you appeared on that rainy highway, and everything changed. Not just the job or the financial security, but—" He gestured around them. "This, Lily laughing more, planning for the future instead of just surviving the present, finding purpose in my work again." Eleanor listened intently, her eyes never leaving his face. "So how do I feel about your presence?" Mike continued. "Grateful doesn't begin to cover it, but it's more than that." He took a deep breath. "I admire you, Eleanor. Your intelligence, your determination, the way you treat Lily with such respect. The way you saw something in me that I'd forgotten was there." A smile touched Eleanor's lips, small but genuine. "I didn't create anything that wasn't already there, Mike. I just gave it room to grow." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Mike was acutely aware of how close they were standing, of the quiet apartment around them, of the line they were approaching, one that would fundamentally change their relationship if crossed. Eleanor seemed to realize it too. She took a small step back, professionally composed once more, though her eyes remained warm. "I should go. Tomorrow will be a busy day for all of us." "The gala?" Mike nodded, both relieved and disappointed by the retreat to safer ground. "My driver will pick you both up at 5, Eleanor said, moving toward the door. "The event begins at 6:30, but I'd like to introduce you to some key people beforehand." "We'll be ready," Mike promised, following her. At the threshold, Eleanor paused, turning back to face him. "Thank you for today, for sharing Lily with me, for—" She hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. "Being your friend?" Mike offered. Gently, Eleanor's smile widened. "Yes, that's exactly it." She reached out, briefly squeezing his hand. "Until tomorrow, then." After she left, Mike stood at the window, watching as she crossed to her vehicle. Just before getting in, She glanced up at his window, offering a small wave when she spotted him. Mike waved back, his mind still processing the day's events and the complex emotions they had stirred. The following evening arrived in a flurry of excitement. Lily twirled in her new dress, delighting in the way the skirt billowed around her. Mike adjusted his tie for the 5th time, still unaccustomed to the formal attire, but pleased with the transformation it created. The promised driver arrived precisely at 5, ushering them into a sleek black town car complete with booster seat. For Lily, another thoughtful detail that spoke to Eleanor's meticulous planning. The drive to Portland passed with Lily chattering excitedly about which butterflies might be represented in the decorations. A connection she had firmly established between Eleanor and Lepidopteran themes. Hayes Automotive's Portland flagship location had been transformed for the evening. The showroom gleamed under strategic lighting, classic cars displayed on raised platforms among elegant floral arrangements. Well-dressed attendees mingled throughout the space, crystal glasses in hand, as servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Eleanor greeted them near the entrance, stunning in a midnight blue gown that complemented Lily's dress. Another coordinated detail that hadn't occurred by chance. Diamond earrings caught the light as she bent to compliment Lily's ensemble. "You look absolutely beautiful," she told the girl, who beamed with pride. Her gaze shifted to Mike, appreciation evident in her expression. "And you clean up rather nicely yourself." "I had expert guidance," Mike replied, suddenly conscious of how well the tailored suit fit compared to his usual attire. The evening unfolded like a scene from a movie Mike had never expected to be part of. Eleanor introduced him to executives, community leaders, and classic car enthusiasts with a quiet pride in her voice that made his accomplishments sound more impressive than he'd considered them. Lily charmed everyone she met before being escorted to the children's area, where entertainment and child-friendly food awaited. As the formal dinner began, Mike found himself seated at Eleanor's right hand at the head table, a position of honor that generated curious glances from those who'd known Eleanor longer. If she noticed the speculation, she gave no indication, remaining focused on her role as hostess while ensuring Mike was included in every conversation. "She's never brought anyone to these events before," the older gentleman seated across from Mike commented quietly during the main course. "You must be quite special." Before Mike could formulate a response, Eleanor smoothly redirected the conversation to the charity auction that would follow dinner. Yet the comment lingered in Mike's mind, adding another layer to his understanding of their evolving relationship. The pinnacle of the evening came after dessert, when Eleanor took the stage to address the gathered crowd. She spoke eloquently about the children's hospitals the event would benefit, sharing statistics and stories that highlighted the impact of their work. Then, unexpectedly, she shifted topics. "Hayes Automotive was founded on a simple principle," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room: investing in people. "My father believed that success wasn't measured in profit margins, but in lives improved, both our customers and our employees." Her gaze found Mike in the audience. "Recently, I was reminded of that principle in the most unexpected way. A rainy night, a broken-down car, and a man who stopped to help despite having every reason not to." Mike felt heat rise in his face as heads turned subtly in his direction. "That chance encounter led to one of our most successful transformations. At our Cedar Creek location," Eleanor continued, "under new management, customer satisfaction has increased 40%, employee retention has stabilized, and revenue has grown double digits, all in just over a month." Applause rippled through the room. Eleanor raised her glass, and the audience followed suit. "To Mike Reynolds, our new Regional Service Operations Manager, who reminds us that excellence isn't about academic credentials or industry connections. It's about integrity, dedication, and seeing possibilities where others see only problems." The Sheikh toast caught Mike entirely off guard. As glasses were raised in his direction and applause swelled, he felt a surge of emotion he hadn't expected. Pride, yes, but also a sense of belonging that had eluded him for years. In that moment, he wasn't just a mechanic who'd caught a lucky break. He was a valued professional whose contributions mattered. Later, as the auction wound down and guests began to depart, Mike found Eleanor standing alone near a gleaming 1967 Mustang that had commanded the highest bid of the evening. "That was quite a toast," he said, joining her beside the classic car. "Every word deserved," she replied simply. "Thank you," Mike said, the words inadequate for the depth of his gratitude. "For everything." Eleanor turned to face him fully, her professional demeanor once again softening into something more personal. "You know that night on the highway when you stopped to help? I remember thinking how rare it was, someone extending themselves for a stranger, expecting nothing in return." "Anyone would have done the same," Mike demurred. "No," Eleanor said firmly. "They wouldn't. Most people would have driven past too, busy with their own concerns." She smiled, the expression warming her entire face. "But not you. And that, Mike Reynolds, is why you now hold the keys to a piece of my automotive empire. Not because I gave them to you, but because you earned them one honest action at a time." Mike recognized the truth in her words. He had earned his place, not through some extraordinary talent, but through the consistent application of the values he'd always held, even when they'd made his life more difficult. "What happens now?" he asked, the question encompassing far more than their professional relationship. Eleanor's smile deepened, understanding the layers of his query. "Now, we build something extraordinary. Together." The word hung between them, full of promise and possibility, a bridge between the worlds they had each inhabited separately until a broken-down Mustang had connected their paths on a rainy night that now seemed destined rather than accidental. As if on cue, Lily appeared from the children's area, her blue dress slightly rumpled from play, but her eyes bright with excitement. She bounded toward them, a paper clutched in her hand. "Look what I made!" she exclaimed, holding up a drawing of 3 figures standing beside a car adorned with butterfly wings. Below it, in her careful handwriting, were the words, "My family." Mike and Eleanor exchanged a glance over Lily's head, surprise, wonder, and something deeper reflecting in both their eyes. The future stretched before them, unwritten, but suddenly rich with possibilities none of them could have imagined just a month before. From broken-down Mustang to butterfly wings, sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with a simple act of kindness on a rainy night. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.